Okay, welcome to the Central Safety Group August event. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I've just got a couple of news items I'd like to cover with you. The first is on the Central Safety Group website, is a tribute to Guy Nettleship. He's a life member of the Central Safety Group, and sadly he passed away 2 years ago. And with the assistance from his family, we've put together a tribute for Guy. If you'd like to have a read of that, and you may even like to share some of your own thoughts on that blog. The other very important reminder is our October event, which is the 60th anniversary lunch at Victorian Parliament House. It'll be on Friday, the 14th of October. We would appreciate if you are intending to come to this event. Please let us know so we can make some forward arrangements on the catering at Parliament House. Very exciting, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully face-to-face in October. Just some housekeeping for today. If you keep on mute during the presentation, if you have a question, you can use the chat and I'll try and get that message through to Phil. And there will be time after the presentation for questions and for more informal chat. So welcome, and we look forward to having some more sort of conversation after Phil's formal presentation, which is on OHS and social sustainability. This is an incredibly important topic now, particularly with the changes in our workplaces over the last 2 years and the expectations really of society on what we should be doing. And Phil actually has some answers and even a 5-point action plan. So listen carefully, and we'll look forward to your feedback on this session afterwards. Phil actually is a senior health and safety and wellbeing consultant and policy advisor with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and brings a wealth of health and safety knowledge to this presentation. So I think we're very honoured to have you here, Phil, and welcome to the presentation.
Thank you very much. Just a little bit of explanation about the policy advisor bit. Essentially, my role at the Victorian Chamber is threefold. I consult in workplaces. I also do a reasonably large amount of training. But the third part, the policy advisor part, is I actually represent the Chamber and its members at both WorkSafe Victoria and at Safe Work Australia, but that part is through the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So let's have a look at today's subject. Social sustainability. What is it? It's interesting if you get onto the Safe Work Australia website and type in social sustainability.
Did you want to share your screen?
Oh, good idea. Sorry. Share screen. There we go. Can you see that now? Yep, good.
Yep,
good.
That's great.
It's interesting if you get onto the Safe Work Australia website, type in social sustainability, you get nothing. You go onto the WorkSafe Victoria website, type in social sustainability, again, you get nothing. So I think it's a good idea, first of all, to discuss what social sustainability is. It's about identifying and managing business impacts, both positive and negative, on people. As it says on the slide, the quality of a company's relationships and engagement with its stakeholders is critical. Directly or indirectly, companies affect what happens to its employees, workers in the value chain, customers, and local communities, and it's important to manage, in my view, these impacts proactively. In fact, businesses' social license to operate, I think, depends greatly on their social sustainability efforts. In addition, A lack of social development, including poverty, inequality, and weak rule of law, can hamper business operations and growth. At the same time, actions to achieve social sustainability can unlock new markets. It can help retain and attract business partners, or it can be the source of innovation for new products or service lines. Certainly, internal morale and employee engagement will rise, while productivity, risk management, and company community conflict improve. I think it's interesting when we consider the principles of social sustainability, or sustainability in general. The first 6 of the UN Global Compact principles focus on this social dimension of corporate sustainability, of which human rights is the cornerstone. Work on social sustainability also covers the human rights of specific groups, labour, women's empowerment and gender equality, children, Indigenous peoples, people with disabilities, as well as people-centred approaches to business impacts on poverty, as well as covering groups of rights holders. Social sustainability encompasses issues that affect them, for example, education and health. While it is the primary duty, I think, of governments to protect, respect, fulfil, and progressively realise human rights, businesses can and should do their part, and as a minimum, businesses should undertake due diligence to avoid harming human rights and to address any adverse impacts on human rights that may be related to their activities. As a complement, I think, but not as a substitute for respecting rights, businesses can also take additional steps. They can contribute in other ways to improve the lives of people they affect, such as by creating decent jobs, goods and services that help meet basic needs and more inclusive value changes. Also, they can make strategic social investments and promote public policy that support the social sustainability. They can partner with other businesses, pooling strength to make a greater positive impact. When we look at the 10 principles, as you can see there, businesses should support and respect the protection of internationally proclaimed human rights, and they should make sure they're not complicit in human rights abuses. I think the next 4 are really important. Businesses should uphold the freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right of collective bargaining. They should also eliminate all forms of forced and compulsory labour, be effective in the abolition of child labour, and also in the elimination or discrimination in respect of employment and communication. Also, with these 10 principles becomes the environment. As it says, businesses should support a precautionary approach to environmental challenges, undertake initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility, and encourage the development and diffusion of environmentally friendly technologies. The last one, businesses should work against corruption in all forms. There are 3 pillars of corporate sustainability. economic, or shall we say corporate, business. There is social sustainability and environment sustainability. Let's have a look at them all one by one. Firstly, corporate sustainability. Corporate sustainability practices fall under the umbrella of environmental, social and governance practices, and commonly known as ESG, and corporations implement ESG in order to reduce their environmental footprint or to accomplish other objectives that are beneficial to society. Sustainability, most often defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. And broadly speaking, a company implements sustainable practices by reducing its consumption of limited resources or finding alternative resources with lower environmental consequences. The three pillars, economic, environmental and social, are quite often informally looked at or referred to as people, planet and profits. This is the economic pillar, and this is where businesses feel they are on good ground, they're on firm ground. To be sustainable, a business must be profitable. But in my view, it shouldn't trump the other two pillars. In fact, profit is not at all what the economic pillar is all about. Activities that fit under the economic pillar include compliance with all relative laws, legislation, proper governance, and risk management. Sometimes the pillar is referred to as the governance pillar. This means that boards of directors and senior management, the C-suite, align with shareholders' interests as well as that of the company's community, the whole value chain and end user customers. The second pillar is, in my view, the one that gets the most attention. Most companies are focused on reducing their carbon footprint, reducing packaging waste, reducing water usage, and reducing other damage to the environment. These practices, besides helping the planet, also have a positive financial impact. For example, reducing the use of packaging materials means lower spending, and improved fuel efficiency also helps with the company's budget. One of the challenges with this pillar is that the business's impact is often not fully costed. This means that there are externalities that are not reflected in consumer prices. The all-in costs of wastewater, carbon dioxide, land reclamation, and waste in general are not easy to calculate because companies are not always the ones charged for the waste that they produce. Then we come to the third pillar. I call this the forgotten pillar, the social pillar. A sustainable business should have the support and approval of its employees, stakeholders, and the community it operates in. The approaches to securing and maintaining this support are many, but it comes down to treating employees fairly, being a good neighbour, and being a good community member, both locally and globally. When we look at employees, business needs to refocus on retention and engagement strategies, including more responsive benefits such as death and maternity and family benefits, flexible shared scheduling and learning development opportunities. For community engagement, companies have come up with many ways to give back, including fundraising, sponsorship, scholarships and investment in local public projects. On a global scale, businesses need to be aware of how their supply chains are being filled. Is child labour going into the end product? Are people being paid fairly? Is the work environment safe? To me, the emphasis seems to be almost exclusively on environmental aspects. The social pillar, which along with the economic, environmental and economic management makes up the tripartite structure of business or corporate sustainability. And the social pillar receives far less attention. But protecting and nurturing people, whether they're employed by a business or its suppliers or are simply affected by its activities, seems to have ended up as a poor relation in a discourse dominated by decarbonisation and waste reduction. We should aim, I think, to encourage business to explore ways that they can enhance the stock of human capital, both within their own workforces and throughout the value chains, to ensure that they are not using resources today in a way that compromises future generations. We don't want to compromise the future generations or the ability of future generations to continue with sustainable development. Reprioritising the human capital aspects of sustainability doesn't mean, I believe, that there should be any less emphasis on corporate responsibility for limiting climate change or halting species loss, which is really important to us here in Australia. So in many ways, these three pillars aren't separate pillars. They are different ways of thinking about sustainability. Ruth Wilkinson of the Institution of Occupational Health and Safety in the UK, IOSH, states that most people are aware of what it takes to make an organisation sustainable in terms of the environment, but the concept of social sustainability is becoming more important too. Socially sustainable organisations are those that prioritise the adoption of a person-centred approach to everything they do, treating employees as an asset and creating the conditions to promote decent work where human capital underpins corporate performance and sustainability. She also said it can be seen that the role of workplace health and safety professionals and the goals of social sustainability are complementary. Both are concerned with ensuring people are healthy, safe and well. We as health and safety professionals play a crucial role in helping organisations to create reporting and learning cultures in which prevention lessons are learned, and they are best placed to work across the business to support socially sustainable practices, work health and safety performance evaluation and reporting. And when you look at the core principles of work health and safety, those in the profession are familiar with, in essence, ensuring all workers are safe, healthy and well. Well, they're already contributing to social sustainability. So let's have a look at the 5 elements of the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health in the UK. It's modelled to social sustainability. The first element is people. It's crucial that organisations ensure their people are fit, healthy and well, along with being well equipped and competent enough to undertake their roles, as well as being engaged and satisfied. I've been around for a number of years, and we were, before a lot of you came on board, we were talking this morning about retirement and who's retired, etc. And I made the comment that I don't want to retire. I am past retirement age, but I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I did retire. I'm reasonably fit, healthy and well, reasonably well equipped to do the job that I'm doing. And I'm very engaged with the job that I do and have been for many, many years. And consequently, I'm very satisfied by it. So I'm sticking around. Element 2 is work in the environment. There's a clear opportunity for us as health and safety professionals to not only provide safe working conditions, a safe physical and psychosocial environment and appropriate equipment, but to also create an environment in which workers can find purpose, autonomy and job satisfaction. And if we can do that, we'll keep them. Element 3 is systems and their integration. We need to develop the capacity to monitor, review, report on and learn from the dynamic relationship between people and work. This is essential. Not only is it beneficial to workplace health and safety, but the existence of a systematic approach to workplace health and safety will also provide reassurance, particularly when independently reviewed or certified. To those interested in the long-term stability of an organisation. The organisation, it's important to have a relationship between work health and safety and other functions, given that the most valuable information related to health and safety performance is thought to come from other functions or external sources. Therefore, cross-functional collaboration and communication streams could be and should be hugely beneficial if we've got them in place. And the 5th element. There's a growing expectation within reporting requirements for organisations to consider their engagement with and, of course, impact upon stakeholder groups. As such, given the universal nature of its fundamental principles, work health and safety could well be seen as a valuable vehicle through which organisations are able to engage externally. In terms of that external matter, as I work for the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I spend a lot of time with WorkSafe and other agencies such as the Accident Compensation Conciliation Service, which is about to, as of the 1st of September, change its name, change its focus, as it will also be looking at other matters as well as conciliation. I got together with, pulled together all the, a number of other employer groups stakeholders in the changes being made to the Accident Compensation Conciliation Service. And we're meeting next week. Now, this is the second time we've had such meetings in the last month or so. And as a consequence, it will appear that we are now getting a coordinator paid for by WorkSafe to actually coordinate the employer groups in discussion, the tripartite discussion between the government, WorkSafe Victoria, the regulator, the unions, who also already have a coordinator, and the employer groups, so that we get a true tripartite view of things, changes of, for example, the new regulations that are coming out in relation to psychosocial hazards and the development of the new psychosocial compliance code. All of these things are going to impact on your workplace, our workplaces, and stakeholder groups such as the employer groups, the union groups, and others such as CSG, Australian Institute of Health and Safety, as the SIA is now known, all should be seen as vehicles through which WorkSafe and other government agencies that have an impact on people in the workplace should engage. There are, however, some important factors that are overarching and need to be considered. It's important for us as health and safety practitioners to understand how the overarching factors of culture, communication, approach to equality, diversity, and inclusion influence everything that happens within an organisation. And by doing so, it may provide insight that helps explain the success or failure of an organisation's occupational health and safety management system. I'd like to now briefly look at a couple of case studies. The first is Fujitsu. And they have a program now which is called Putting People First. Fujitsu is a Japanese information and communications technology giant, and it employs over 125,000 people in more than 100 countries. Despite these challenges and having such a widespread and diverse workforce, Fujitsu prides itself on an organisational culture which is intolerant of accidents, incidents, and poor safety performance. Putting people first. Well, as Fujitsu says, the Fujitsu Group's first priority in all business activities is to protect the health and safety of our employees, both in mind and body, by providing a safe and healthy work environment tailored to the different cultures in which we operate. Fujitsu says it will foster a culture that doesn't tolerate accidents, incidents, and poor safety performance. Further, it says it will ensure safety as a core business value and make safety important and personal in order to influence people's decisions and behaviour. They go on to say they will completely eliminate the loss of business opportunities due to preventable illnesses, injuries, and unexpected work-related incidents. Another organisation, one which many of you would be familiar with, is Multiplex. They have a program called Building a Sustainable Future. Having been established in Australia in the 1960s, it became prominent in our major cities. It now operates in a number of countries around the world, including in the UK, Canada, and the Middle East. Building a Sustainable Future. They call it Moving Forward. Having spent a number of years putting a framework in place, from 2020, Multiplex focused on its broader environment, social and government strategy, and includes a social equity strategy called Leave No One Behind. When you look at it, this is closely aligned to 4 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and there is in Multiplex a real determination to engage the workforce in how they are protected from injuries, ill health and wellbeing issues. It's hoped that such moves will enhance the image of the construction industry and enable it to attract the next generation of workers. There's another story. Social sustainability wasn't in his mind, but many of you will know of the story of Paul O'Neill, the CEO of Alcoa, the aluminium company of America. When Paul O'Neill was appointed as the CEO, he was asked to front the investors and stakeholders in the business, Alcoa. He was expected to talk about stock levels, financial levels, how he was going to turn the business around. He stood up at this meeting and he said nothing about finances, nothing about stock levels. Instead, he said, I want to talk to you about health and safety. I am going to improve the health and safety of Alcoa. During his talk, people started to leave the room. They were picking up telephones and dialing their clients saying, dump your Alcoa stock. The new CEO is mad. Within 5 years, he turned Alcoa around. It went from having a serious injury roughly every week at each of its plants to 1 serious injury in a year. Staff engagement was greater. Staff turnover fell away. People were happy to come to work. They felt safe going to work. They felt safe talking about the issues that they have at work. Consequently, less time was lost, productivity improved, sales improved, and as it became well known that Alcoa was a safe company, it was deemed that the products it produced were safe. And as a result, I think it was some 5 years later, the company made billions of dollars of profit, much, much higher than it had made in the years before Paul O'Neill joined. It wasn't called social sustainability in those days, but a similar thing to what Multiplex are doing and what Fujitsu is doing. Any questions?
Thank you, Phil. That was a great presentation, and I think certainly is food for thought for all of us as safety practitioners, and presented in such a clear way, particularly in the use of the terminology people, planet and profits. It really just makes it more engaging and understandable.
Thank you.
Before I open up to the group to maybe comment particularly on your 5 actions, the term "leave no one behind," which was referenced against multiplex and obviously incorporates the UN terminology. Do you feel that that's going to become a bit like zero harm? It's a phrase that's going to be used a lot without substance that we have seen over the last 15, 20 years in safety?
Yeah, I hope not. I hope that we look at it genuinely. It's an interesting thing. A lot of the words that are used in the UN global statement I don't think we consider them here in Australia. Things like child labour and the like. But when you consider that we also buy things in from overseas, from other countries, we need to ensure that what we're doing is, for want of a better term, legitimate. We really need to think about where we're getting products from, where we're getting, whether they are being properly produced. Yeah, there is so much in that UN Global Compact that we're not even looking at yet. And I know I've sort of gone off the question there, but to me, what fascinates me is that we haven't picked up on this in Australia in a big way. And I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but I have a question for those listening. I spoke about Paul O'Neill and Alcoa in the US, spoke about Fujitsu as a case study, Multiplex as a case study. They're all large businesses. How do we get the small and medium enterprises, the SMEs, 250 people or less on board? When you say zero harm, yeah, we all look at it and we say, yeah, it'd be great if we could achieve it. Well, sorry, I think we can achieve these things, but when I go out to customers and clients, they say, oh no, I can't afford health and safety, it costs too much money. They don't realise that they actually, as a business, look after their staff, look after their people, help them continue to learn and develop. Those people will stay. Profitability will go up. Costs will go down. WorkSafe itself says that for every dollar that an organisation spends on workers' compensation claims for medical and like expenses, the business suffers something like between $5 and $8 costs in other areas. Companies just don't realise that. And I think we can find it fairly easy to demonstrate to larger businesses that they can afford to make these changes. But I really would like to know if anybody has any thoughts about how we can get small and medium enterprises to make these changes too.
I think they're lucky having you there to provide some of that guidance. For those who want to ask questions, I'd ask you to put your camera on so that we can see you, so when you actually can contribute fully to that conversation. Just from that point on how to engage Australian businesses, Phil, is it because Australia does have a good record on a lot of those UN measures around child labour, discrimination? Do you feel it doesn't get the emphasis because we do have a good record in Australia?
Yeah, we have a good record in Australia in some areas. In some areas we don't. There has been a lot of talk recently in the news about our treatment of Indigenous people in the workplace, especially on the football field. We also have issues in relation to women in the workforce, bits of discrimination there. Sure, from a child labour point of view, I think we do pretty good, but we certainly still have problems elsewhere, yes. And where we're importing products, do we ever think about how they're made in that country? Do we ever go and have a look at what goes into it, how they're paid, if they're paid? Don't know.
Yes, I think certainly the recent coverage on the Hyundai factory in the United States using child labour was quite shocking. And so it can occur in developed countries as much as underdeveloped countries, the places we might more likely expect to see bribery, corruption, child labour and those aspects.
Yeah, well, that's because you're putting profits before anything else.
Yeah. And as you said, it certainly needs to be balanced. The profits, people and planet needs to be a balanced conversation, not just one or the other.
Sure does.
It needs to be all three. And I certainly think none of us would disagree that the social aspect is that forgotten one, as you made a comment. Does any of the group have a comment they'd like to make, particularly on the 4 aspects of where safety does reach out into these social constructs? I think the fit for work is a huge one, and I think certainly looking at the demographics of our workforces, which are changing so much over these times of COVID. As Phil said, there's a lot of the baby boomers were hanging around. Is that not opening up positions for other workers to come in and take leadership roles at a younger age? But I think certainly the aspect of being fit for work is a super important one for both mental and physical health. And
obviously from a psychological health point of view, fitness for work is becoming very, very important.
Yes, very much so. And I think certainly the expectation of a safe work environment, which requires the systems and the communication. And I think the aspects around the purchasing, hopefully the communications will actually be more engaging for employees to ask some of those questions about where the resources are coming from, rather than just people blindly using the resources provided, actually ask those questions.
Jane Loudon here, Phil. Phil, somebody was a manager in a company of health and safety, and they looked at your suggestions. Have you seen an example where they can become engaged with the rest of the company? Do they do it through HR or how you do it?
Yeah, I sometimes wonder a bit about HR. Can I do it through HR? No, I think as stated in the presentation, I think we're already, as health and safety people, helping to develop social sustainability within a business. I just think we need to talk further about it to management, open it up to management, both senior and middle management, with the view to them getting them to think about it and getting them to understand where people are really, really important. People quite happily now are trying to change things from an environmental viewpoint. They want to keep their profits going at a good level, but they don't seem to see that they're people that they are using to develop those other 2 pillars of their procedures and practices in those other 2 pillars are actually looking after their own. I don't think they actually can see that they should be looking after their own people as such. My view is that all of us, when we go into the workplace, we really want to continue to learn, to grow. And I think we have to be nurtured, and I think we have to then start to mentor younger folk as they come in. Sure, as was said, I'm sticking around, but I'm happy to talk to younger folk coming into the health and safety profession to say to them, this is what I would do, this is why I would do it, what are your thoughts, and get them to talk to me and listen and move forward. And I really think that we've got to get this 3-pillar thing out into the business. Say, yeah, great, we might be doing good in this area, the environmental area. we are, the company is growing, but it can grow further, it can grow faster, and the profits can go higher if you start to look after your people better.
I think safety practitioners are in a very strong position. We often do get to ask sometimes the difficult questions, and
Yep.
I think the way that you've placed it to fit around the key aspects of safety workplace management does give us the opportunity to engage in those conversations. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to have to sign out because unfortunately I have to go and chair another meeting at 1 o'clock. But you can certainly stay online more informally after we stop the recording, and we look forward to seeing you all next month. We're having a talk on aviation safety, and I think that certainly has been an industry which has led safety over a number of years, so it's sure to be an illuminating presentation. So I'll see you all next week, but do keep chatting if you have time. Thank you.